Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 7, Chapter 10, entitled Prahlad, the best among the exalted devotees. This is 10. Okay. So I'll run through the Sanskrit. Punascha viprasapena rakashoto bahubhavata bhavatu kuma bhakana dasa grivo hato to rama vikramai. Being cursed by the Brahmins, the same two associates took birth again as Kumbhakarna and the 10-headed Ravana. These two Rakshasas were killed by Lord Ramachandra's extraordinary power. Sayano Yudinibina Hridayo Rama Sayakai Tachito Jahato Deham Yata Praktana Janmani. Pierced by the arrows of Lord Ramachandra, both Kumbhakarna and Ravan lay on the ground and left their bodies fully absorbed in thought of the Lord, just as they had in their previous births as Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu. So text 38. Tav ihata puna jato tavihata puna jato. Sorry. Shishupal Karusha Jo Shishupala Karusha Jo Haro Vairanu Bandena Haro Vairanu Bandena Palshatas Te Samiyato Palshatas Te Samiyato Tavihata Punajato Shishupal Kurushu Jo Haro Vairanu Bandena Palshatas Te Samiyato Tavihata Punajato Shishupala Karushajo Haro Vairanu Bandena Palshatas Te Samiyato. Jato Bandena Palshatas Tavihato Punajato Shishupal Karushajo Haro Vairanu Bandena Palshatas Te Samiyato Tavihata Punajato Shishupala Karushajo Haro Vairanu Bandena Samiyato To. Both of them. Iha, in this human society. Ata, in this way. Puna, again. Jato, took their birth. Shishupal. Karushajo, Dantavakra. Haro, unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Avaira Anubandena, by the bondage of considering the Lord as an enemy. Pashata. We're looking on. Te. While you. Samiyato. Merged or went into the lotus feet of the Lord. Translation. They both took birth again in human society as Shishupal and Dantavakra, and continued in the same enmity toward the Lord. It is they who merged into the body of the Lord in your presence. Responsibly, please. They both took birth again in human society as Shishupal and Dantavakra, and continued in the same enmity toward the Lord. It was they who merged into the body of the Lord in your presence. Vairanu Bandena. Acting like the Lord's enemy is also beneficial for the living entity. Kama Dveshad Bhayat Snehad. Whether in lusty desire, anger, fear, or envy of the Lord, somehow or other, as recommended by Sri Rupa Goswami, Tasmat Kenap Upanyena. One should become attached to the Supreme Personality of Godhead and ultimately achieve the goal of returning home back to Godhead. What then is to be said of one who is related to the Supreme Personality of Godhead as a servant, friend, father, mother, or conjugal lover? Om Jnana Timiranda Shagananjana Shalakaya Chakshuran Militam Dena Tasmai Shri Guru Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobis Stapitam Dena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Vidamanam Vidata Swapadantatam Jaya Shri Krishna Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadha Shri Vasari Gaura Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Vanchikalpatrubhishya kripasindhukya Harivinam Bhagavim So, Shishupal and Dantavakra were coming, the same demons that fell originally from the spiritual world. They also took birth as Hiranyaksha, Hiranyakashipu, and Ravan and Kumbhaka. And then Shukadeva Goswami is saying to Maharaj Parikshit that they merged into the body in your presence. So when they were killed, the little particle of light came out from their bodies and then entered into Krishna's body. So they were acting as the Lord's enemy, which is an interesting word, acting, because nobody is really the enemy of the Lord. They only think they're the enemy of the Lord. And then even when they do fight the Lord, there's no hard feelings. The Lord gives them salvation. What to speak of those who are related to the Lord as a servant, a friend, father, mother, or a conjugal lover. So I just read it. That Vaikuntha is maintained by the power of and Goloka is maintained by the conjugal loss. But, similarly, he is maintaining his personal abode, Goloka Vrindavan, through his conjugal love, and he is maintaining the spiritual world containing the Vaikuntha planets by his opulences. So in Goloka, the relationship is very intimate. So we go from one extreme to the other extreme, is that if we're demoniac, or we behave in a demoniac way, and we act like the enemy of the Lord, then he still helps us. Krishna Surya Sama Maya Andhakara. So Krishna is like sunlight, and Maya is like darkness. So even if the cave that the sun is shining in is very, very deep and very, very dark, still it illuminates. Still it has the beneficial effect. The sunlight doesn't take offense that, oh, this cave is so dark, I'm not going to enter it. So Krishna is all auspicious, however you approach him. But it's much more pleasant if you can approach him in a loving way rather than a reluctant, begrudging way. Sometimes devotees, they take up Krishna consciousness, and then as they go on, they realize it's not going to be as easy as they thought. And like we were just reading in the Nectar of Devotion, Bhishma Dev was quite surprised at how the Pandavas, who were so righteous, and Draupadi, who was practically the goddess of fortune, were going through so much difficulty. And it seemed contradictory. Surely, if the Lord is kind to the demons, he must be super kind to the devotees. So therefore, they should be having a very carefree, easy life. And so it would look externally like that's not the case. Of course, internally, the devotees are always reassured that the Lord is there and he's protecting them. And Draupadi was confident that in due course they would be saved. And that's exactly what happened. So sometimes Krishna is, he's going to help us, but we just have to be patient. It may take some time. It's like Prabhupada was chanting one time, and Narayan was looking at Prabhupada. He was very nervous because Prabhupada was chanting very boldly. He was walking up and down, Hare Krishna, and he would turn, and his children would come in, and he'd come back, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Narayan was looking at Prabhupada, and he said, Prabhupada, will I be able to become a pure devotee? And Prabhupada said, yes. And he walked up, Hare Krishna, and he turned around and said, but it may take some time. So we have to be patient. Krishna will save us, but along the way there will be difficulties. So we shouldn't have some preconceived idea of what Krishna consciousness is. That it means now we can have an easy life. Just like Arjuna could have said to Krishna, okay, I realize you're God, and I realize they're all killed. So you just carry on. I'm going to do a bit of extra reading here in the back of the chariot, and tell me when it's all over. But he didn't do that. He was intensely engaged to the point where even Krishna arranged that there was some adversity with his son Abhimanyu, and Arjuna became so angry. There was a phalanx called the pin phalanx, which went for miles, and Jayadratha was at the end, and Arjuna had vowed to kill him. If he didn't kill him before the sun set, then he would enter fire. So they'd arranged this arrow phalanx, and if Arjuna tried to go along the side, there would be so many arrows raining down on him. So the only way he could fight was to directly approach the phalanx of the soldiers and just kill them. So Arjuna was, one of his things that he was famous for was Arjuna could fire crescent-shaped arrows, and he could fire shoots of them because he could fire the arrows so quick. And he had an inexhaustible quiver, so he could just fire out these shoots. And then these divisions of soldiers would be riding in with no heads, and then the next platoon would come. So he was doing this all day because he became so angry. So that doesn't look like he's taking it easy, and he knows Krishna's God. Krishna's got his back. He can take care of everything. So that's what it looks like when you're fully engaged in Krishna consciousness. You're fully aware that Krishna's in control, that he's doing everything, but you've surrendered yourself to act as his instrument. So our only problem is our false ego, because our false ego is Krishna has his plan, his program, and I have mine. And if that interferes with mine, then okay, Krishna, it was nice knowing you. She, Kodanitai, Maya Poshashi Ki, Jai. So that's us being tested by Krishna. And initially he's testing us for our own benefit, and then he's testing us for the benefit of everybody else. Everybody else is looking at the older devotees. How do the older devotees react when there's pressure and difficulty? And so then they see the example. This is what you do. And the older devotees are looking at the older devotees, the Prabhupada disciples. The Prabhupada disciples are looking at the previous acharyas, and everyone's looking back at Krishna and his pastimes with his devotees, at the Pandavas, and how they dealt with all the difficulties, and how ultimately they were successful. Although they had to be patient. So I was reading Manashiksha and Bhakti Bhakti Jnana. Actually, mind, because you don't want to start fighting with the mind, because that just gives the mind more strength. Because you just have to learn to tolerate. So that's the challenge. That can we learn that? Tolerance also means it's broken down by Bhaktivinoda Thakur. The word tolerance means also forgiveness, because unless you can forgive somebody, how can you tolerate them? So tolerance comes up a lot actually, and the word carries a lot of meanings to it, because you can't forgive unless you're compassionate, and you can't be compassionate unless your heart is pure. So there's a lot that goes under tolerating. Also, you have to be patient to tolerate. And then Krishna asks us to tolerate without being disturbed, and then not only not disturbed, but joyfully tolerating in the knowledge. So the knowledge is the important thing. Do we have the knowledge? Do we have the sambandha? And then when we put the sambandha into practice, abhidaya, then we get realizations. Bhagavatam was giving us all the sambandha and the abhidaya, and then we have to, and also showing us what prayojana looks like. And so we may be thinking, well, once I've achieved prayojana, once I've achieved this amazing state of consciousness, my life is going to be so peaceful, and everything's just going to happen so easily. But that's not the case. And sometimes you may be thinking, well, how long do I have to do this for? And it can be a reassuring thought to think, well, I'm probably just going to do this forever. So, but when you just accept, okay, maybe I'll be doing this forever, eternally, then there's no longer any anxiety, or I can tolerate this for so long, and then I'm going to need to do this, or I'm going to need to do that. But if we fully surrender, then we just accept, okay, well, this is what's being asked of me, so let me just do this forever. And then actually that's when all the anxiety goes, because the anxiety is not because of attachment to wanting some type of relief. So when we give up that attachment, we just accept, then we can live in the eternal present. Bhaktivinoda Thakur refers to the eternal present. He says anything outside the eternal present, when we operate in past, present, and future, then immediately we do that, we with those considerations, he says that's when doubts arise. And he says doubts are the cause of arguments, and arguments are the cause of anarthas. Interesting, then, all based on the time factor. He says, but if you want to get free from all that, then just be situated in the eternal present, because in the eternal present there are no doubts, there are no arguments, and there are no anarthas. So if you do want to experience eternality, then that's what you have to give up. The past, present, and future. Well, considering the past and the future, Satchidananda Swami refers to it in broken names as being figments of the mind. He says there is only the now. And he says, chant the holy name in the naked now. So that this now that we're experiencing is the same now that we were born in, and it's the same now that we will die in. And the illusion is that time is passing, but actually there is no time. The soul is eternal, and we're in the eternal present. It's just a question of how long it takes before we realize that. And then when we realize it, then we realize, oh, actually I was in the eternal present. I'd never left it. I only appeared to. It's like if you're on a train and the person goes past on the platform carrying a sign, and you think, oh, the train's taking off, they're going somewhere, And then suddenly you realize, oh no, everything else is stationary. So the sensation of movement is there because things are passing us, but actually we're stationary. There is no time for the soul. The time is just always was and always will, and the Teva Hamjituna. It's always here. But it appears that time is passing because we identify with objects that are going past us. And therefore we get the sensation of movement. Any questions or comments? Whose presence? Maharaj Pariksha, I'd assumed. I thought Shukadev Goswami is speaking now. Yeah, that's a good question. I have to go back a few pages. Narada Muni, O King Yudhisthira. So it's Narada Muni. So it's King Yudhisthira who's in the presence of King Yudhisthira. I was thinking because Maharaj Pariksha came after, so I just assumed that when we'll come back to the original conversation, but it's Narada Muni, and he's instructing Maharaj Yudhisthira. So that's the goal, attached to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and ultimately achieve the goal of returning home back to Godhead. So that's the sadhya. They say that once you see the goal, then you lose sight of the obstacles. The obstacles are things that you become aware of when you lose sight of the goal. So it's really important to have the sadhya, the sadhika, and the sadhya.
You were talking about tolerance, and often we hear about that, and that verse is quoted, one should learn to tolerate without being disturbed. So I was just wondering, learn to tolerate, which scripture can we refer to find out what are the directions to learn how to tolerate? Where can we find the lessons if we're to learn how to tolerate? What's the method of learning?
Yeah. Chaitanya Charitamrita, there's quite a... Chaitanya Charitamrita is like showing us this is how you behave in devotional relationships. This is how you conduct yourself. And then we see great saints who were tolerating. Haridas Thakur was concerned that the people that had beaten him didn't suffer. So that's an amazing example. And of course we could get overwhelmed by that and think, well, that's so daunting. How could I ever, I can't even handle somebody not taking off when the lights turn green, never mind being beaten in 22 marketplaces, and then I've got to forgive them. So that's a huge leap. So because we can't do that in one go, then we have to take small incremental steps towards that, knowing that is the goal, praying that we can achieve that level. And Vasudeva Datta was prepared. He wanted to suffer on behalf of everybody else. So this is maybe not what we think pure devotional service is going to look like. When we become advanced, we're thinking, I didn't think it was going to be like, I was going to be put myself in this type of a situation. I thought that I would be getting off scot-free and everybody else would be going down to the lower planetary systems. But as we become more advanced, then we become more concerned. And then book distribution becomes very easy, actually, because book distribution is difficult when it looks like everybody else is enjoying and I'm suffering. And why are you gonna want to involve anybody else? Come and read this book and lead a life of suffering like me. So compassion naturally will well up when we realize how much they are suffering. I met a boy the other day. His name was Rory, and he's really been through the mill. He's 27 now, and he's been on a whole thing. Anyway, he's come out the other end, and they'd put him in these lunatic asylums because he wouldn't conform, and he's got all these ideas about spiritual life are absolutely correct, and he's only just learning now that you have to keep quiet about these things because most people think you're mad, So he was really pleased to be able to talk with me. We're going to keep in touch, but he's kind of like a devotee, or he is a devotee already, even without Prabhupada's books. And I was thinking when I was leaving him with the books, this is going to really join the dots up like anything, He had all the dots. Prabhupada's just like, he puts all the dots together, and then suddenly you see, oh wow, everything suddenly makes sense. So we were just talking and talking and talking. One of those moments that you'll never forget in your Sankirtan life, when you meet someone like that, you connect with somebody and they're really, really looking for Krishna consciousness. They've already kind of figured out the regulative principles themselves, that God must have a form, that they have a relationship with Him, that the goal is to leave this world which is illusory. So he's kind of come to that conclusion already. So, tolerance, the more compassion we experience, the more we can appreciate how much other people are suffering, then the more we realize how fortunate we are, and then the more we can tolerate, the more we can. It's easy to tolerate, actually, when you feel grateful. Mm. Yeah, Bhakti Maharaj was saying that the reason he was saying tolerate was because he was kind of dismissing the idea that people have this alternative ways of controlling the mind to make it easier, and you just have to face the fact that it's not a very pleasant medicine. It's very sour in the beginning, but you've got to learn to tolerate. That's how you're going to control the mind, not by getting involved with the mind, trying to justify something to the mind, fighting the mind. Then we just become ensnared, embroiled in the mind. So it's like one time Srila Prabhupada was giving this lecture, and this Chinese lady, I think the devotees was making a noise, and she was a laundry woman, and she was, something had happened anyway. So she burst onto the stage and she just started screaming Srila Prabhupada in Chinese, and she went on and on and on, and everybody was there. The whole place was like full of people. And then she stopped, and then Srila Prabhupada, he went up to the mic and he said, "Chinese laundry woman," and someone translated what he'd said, and she started laughing, and Prabhupada just, there is no thing you can do other than observe that this is how a Chinese laundry woman behaves, That's, you just got to tolerate it and just identify what it is, So it's a perfect example of how, if your consciousness is very elevated, then you can observe things, but you don't react to things. You can acknowledge things. Like Mahatma Prabhu, he was saying, a really good mantra to help you tolerate things. He was standing in a queue for ages, and just as he was about to get served, somebody just came around the side and butted in, and he used his mantra, interesting. And that's how he dealt with it, That's how he tolerated it. So whatever it is, anything that you have to do to put a gap between you acting so that you can just observe, So and it doesn't come easy. You have to practice it, but that is the only solution is that you learn that is the only thing that you can do. There's no other. You don't take 3 antidepressant tablets. You don't hit them on the head with a crowbar. You don't run up the road screaming. You observe, and you just tolerate. Mm. 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 Yeah, well, Prabhupada says fear. He says fear of a personal identity is what causes a person to become insensitive to others. Because if you're going to be a person, then you have to have feelings. You have to take other people's feelings into account. So some people they want to sidestep that whole thing, bypass it, and just okay. Well, actually, I'm not really a person, and he's not really a person. We're all just blobs. I'm not blobs screaming right now. And that's not a problem. It's not my problem anyway. Like that. That's fear of personal identity. Who's this by? Pete. Pete. Oh, Pete. What's the meaning of Gora? Cora. Coda. Coda. Oh, Coda. It means a broker. It means somebody that deals in transaction. And Lord Nityananda, the holy name is the commodity, and the transaction. Your numerical value is the amount of faith you have. You need 1 pice. How much is a pice worth? Paisa. Okay, so that's like a rupee is like a pound, right? So you need a tenth of a penny. If you got a tenth of a penny, then Lord Nityananda will do business with you. He's the broker. If you've not got that, but once you get that, then you can invest that pice of faith, and eventually you need a gold coin to get prema. So you have to accumulate. You have to invest in your bank account acts of devotion, so that your faith goes up from being a paisa to a gold coin. And then Lord Nityananda will give you prema. He's happy to give it. Kodanitai, Kodanitai. So, I had a nice prayer the other day by a devotee. She was saying, don't just stay on the altar. Please come out with me on Sankirtan. So, Kodanitai Mai Pashashi. They can come out with us on Sankirtan. We can ask them to come. They're more than willing. And if they're with you, then you'll find it a lot easier to tolerate. Just like if you knew Srila Prabhupada was in Buchanan Street today, and you were doing book distribution from the Srila Prabhupada, you'd have no problem tolerating anything. You'd be like, oh, you're not interested? Not a problem. Hey, have a nice day. Jai, ISKCON Guru in the key, Srila Prabhupada ki, Shishi Koranitai Mai Pashashi ki, Jai, Nitai Go to Nandi, Hari Go.